John, Tom, thank you for taking time out. Obviously, we're talking the week of the premiere at Fright Fest, so I appreciate that you must be, busy trying to organize a million and one things. But we are here to talk about An Taibhse, which is screening on Friday at Fright Fest, part of the 25th anniversary. It's on, the Odeon Leicester Square massive screen. How are you guys feeling about the screening?
Go
Yeah,
ahead, John.
feeling good, excited. It's like a dream of mine to play it in Leicester Square. I've gone over there as a kid, seen movies there. To have a film playing there now, yeah, it's a dream come true. So yeah, really, really excited.
Yeah, I will second that. I think it's even more fantastic for me having an Irish language film premiering in London. Originally from the west of Ireland, and what with our checkered history and everything, this is massive. It's as big for me as when the Queen came to Ireland and spoke Oscuelga. So thank you, London.
Nice. And how did the idea for this film come around? And what was it? Like I say, it's you mentioned it's told in the Irish language. I think it's one of the first within the genre to do so. Why was it important to tell this story in this language?
Well, yeah. So the idea spawned during lockdown when uh obviously the theme of the film and the ending, it's quite a dark subject, and it's inspired by someone I know. It's close to me and what they went through. And whenever the lockdowns happened because of COVID, I thought about how, like, this is just going to make it worse, what was happening, especially with like abuse, domestic abuse. And that's when I thought of the initial idea for the story. And then it was only in university, whenever I was working on a module to do a horror short film, that I thought about actually making a film based on that story. And then I thought about setting it during one of Ireland's darkest times, the Great Famine. And by having it in the Irish language, it keeps it authentic and true to like the time period and the setting. And it's also our language, and
Yeah.
it was taken away from us. We weren't allowed to speak it, so I think it's just important that more and more art is created in the Irish language and in our in our language. And yeah, so between keeping it immersive and keeping it authentic and true to the time, as well as just making films in our language, that were the reasons why.
Mm.
I think sorry, if I just say, I think it also like it's really interesting to kind of like explore a theme like horror and sort of like that darkness and stuff, and actually see the scope of what a native language can do. Because realistically, like horror is such a sort of introverted experience for the audience, but then on top of that, having sort of like a language that's so foreign to the world and so foreign to most Irish people as well, like, ironically, actually makes it even more of an experience then for the audience and stuff like that. So, and I don't know, Kat, you've seen the film, so like from your point of view, what did you think? Was the language a barrier? Did it enhance the experience or?
It's definitely not a barrier, and you're right. It does help, with the authenticity of the time. It does tend to be quite jarring sometimes when there are films set in places outside of America or the United Kingdom, and everybody's talking English. Just like because we are everywhere apparently. We are our language is the be all and end all, so it is always nice to see. And it was, it's sort of a shock to think what we're in 2024 and there hasn't already been a horror film in the Irish. It doesn't,
Yeah.
you're an entire country. It boggles my mind that, it's taken so long for, for this film to come out.
We were all waiting for John.
That's very Tom.
But But you mentioned the lockdown, and obviously this film is about, a father and daughter who's, sort of like isolated away. Do you think that maybe, audiences might view this slightly differently than they would have, perhaps in a pre-COVID time? Because I definitely feel that there is that thing now of when you see these sorts of stories, the viewer can put themselves immediately into that scenario because we did all spend so long trapped inside.
That's a really interesting question, actually. Yeah. And personally, I never thought of it like that. For me, like as an audience member watching a film, I try and just sort of go into the world, whatever the film is set in and the time, dependent like that. I would try and sort of block out anything current that's happening, but that's really interesting sort of invitation to think maybe that people will actually sort of engage more with it because they have experienced that sort of isolation or that lockdown in a room, barely able to move. So, wow, yeah. What do you think, John? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I hadn't really thought about that, but I suppose writing it during lockdown, it makes sense why I was thinking like that. But it was more um, about what I would have thought was more about like the Irish people in general and like being oppressed and um like forced into into a job, getting their um education taken from them, all their resources, their land, and having like someone just trapped in a place. And that was Moira. And it was more about how the trauma of what happened in the famine was passed down through generations, and that we're still even feeling the effects of the Great Famine, and how Eamon obviously experienced the famine firsthand, and that affected him greatly, and he wasn't able to deal with it, and went to alcohol, turned to alcohol, and wasn't able to control himself, and then let the evil inside him come out. And then that trauma then was passed on to Moira. And great, yeah, spoiler, but like Moira is able to escape Eamon, uh, but that trauma, that abuse is still will still live inside her and will obviously be passed down. And it was kind of showing the beginning of how this cycle began, which was caused by the English, the British, like what they did to Ireland with the like a genocide of the Irish people. So yeah, that's kind of the thinking behind it, and then having them like trapped in that house, or Moira trapped in that house, being oppressed by her father. That was kind of like looking at it through what the English did to the Irish in a different perspective. But yeah,
And, you mentioning, the location, that house, it's like its own extra character. I mean, how did you find the location, and how did working within it sort of help, creating the tone and the atmosphere? Because I definitely, like I say, I think it's its own separate character to the piece.
yeah. Well, we had the location beforehand. We knew what it was like, and we'd scouted it, and then we were able to adapt the screenplay to like utilize the location. That like big tunnel was there, and we were like, yeah, we have to add that in for that sequence at the end. And yeah, it was great. Tom probably will be able to answer this a bit better about how it made him feel as an actor, but being on location every day and in the middle of nowhere, you really were immersed into that world. Like there was no phone service or anything. It was just us, the crew working on that film. And yeah, like shooting in that house from morning to night. It just, yeah, it made the whole experience a lot more immersive. And it kept it a lot more authentic. And yeah, well, what about it? What do you think, Tom, from the acting?
Well, yeah, I mean, the house is like you said, Kat, it literally became a character, a living, breathing entity, for us all. I think we all developed our own sort of relationship to the house throughout the filming. Um, Nearly every day, just to sort of like get away for a little quiet. There was what, 250 something rooms or something like that, but all these corridors, and it was like, you could literally go off down and go, Jesus, I haven't been down here before. And then you had this like, okay, I might get lost down here. Like I should sort of make sure you know, like a breadcrumb player, you know, dropping pebbles behind you just to make sure you know how to get back. But yeah, I think in the end, it the one thing was the cold. The cold kind of like got into you, and then in order to sort of like really live the characters and not have any home comforts, like no running water, no hot water, you know, you really got a sense of, okay, this is actually what these people went through. And as soft as we've become as a race, humans, like back then to be thrown into that, I think, you know, actors that go heavy into method, like, you know, would probably go, okay, I want my warm room, I want my hot shower now, you know, because this was proper realism. And then from an acting point of view, you know, I mean, obviously acting is about being as believable and true to the sort of character and the environment and the scenario. When you're in that sort of physical environment, it just becomes so real, you know. Once you know your lines, you're not really acting, you're actually, you know, you can't become Eamon, obviously, like, you know, but you're actually embodying that sort of like, because the house is just, you know, and even when we were doing the music and stuff like that, like with Ali Donald, the composer, the idea of having this kind of pulsing sound like a heartbeat in that's basically the heartbeat of the house. That's kind of like essentially cocooning Eamon and Moira again, giving the sense of isolation and stuff again, like, you know, so yeah, it was class, I gotta say. I mean, and again, luckily enough, we were probably we are the first to film ever in that house, so I'm sure a lot of people will want to be using it as a location again, but you know, well done there, John, again.
And obviously, you know, I know that you guys have previously collaborated on projects before, along with Livy as well. Does that sort of pre-existing relationship help when you are, you know, sort of trapped together in the middle of nowhere, and you know you're doing, you know, some really intense, you know, there's some really intense scenes between Eamon and his daughter. You know, did that sort of help knowing that there was that sort of, guess, element of trust?
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah. I'll let you go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'll just say 100%. I mean, um, from my point of view, you know, I worked with John originally on his first feature, The Sleep Experiment, and that was pretty much my first lead role in a feature. And wow, like, yeah, I will sit here and say that I will die happy if I never work with anyone other than John Farrelly, you know, so, because he's just a phenomenal director. He's a real actor's director, and I, you know, as an actor, I can only do what the script is going to show me, but then I need the director to take me and tell me what he sees in his mind's eye because I love working with writer directors because I literally become the physical manifestation of what they have, you know, in a metaphysical reality in their mind. And that's what I love, you know, and you can't go wrong really as an actor unless you get in your own way or you're a bit of an asshole or whatever. But you can't go wrong when the director is directing you and do it again, do it again. Yeah. And it's just pure trust. It's just a trust and a knowing that John knows exactly what he wants, how he wants it. And it's your job just to provide the physical manifestation of that, you know. And I love that. I love that. That makes great art because you're literally just bringing something out of like the ether into the 3D reality, you know. So, and Liv is fantastic. She's an absolute phenomenal actress, and I think she's going to have an incredible career. She's just, and she, you know, for me, the only thing I ever ask anyone I'm working with is to know their lines. And even in the if foreign language, if it's Swahili or Irish or English or whatever, once you know your lines, we'll be brilliantly working together, you know. So that's it. And she knew her lines. She knew her lines on The Lost Jedi, and yeah, and from that she got the An Taibhse role. So yeah, she's great.
Yeah, and if I only get to work with one actor again, I'll die happy if it's just Tom. But yeah, no, it's been
Proper
great.
bromance.
Yeah. No, it's great. Like from working with Tom on the Sleep Experiment to like loads of other short films, Atmosphere Test, different projects. Yeah, no, it's great. It's that trust and that we're not afraid to push each other, and we also push each other to get the best out of each other. I think that's great. Like I know that Tom will bring his A game, and if I'm slacking or thinking, oh, I'm a bit tired, I'll finish this shot list or I'll finish this. I'm like, oh no, Tom's out there preparing right now. I need to go. So it's always like, it's just really encouraging and great to work with Tom and also Liv as well. I just worked with Tom a lot longer, but yeah, Liv is amazing. Just the two of them, and Tony as well, who's is part of
Mm.
the film too. We've worked with Tony on the sleep experiment and on other projects. So having a cast and crew that we're all really familiar with and work together with, it just made the project and the process so seamless. Like we knew exactly what we wanted, or if I said something, or if Tom was like, "Oh, let's do that," or if anyone had ideas, like it was really collaborative. There was no egos, there was
Mhm.
no tension. We were just all going down, having fun, making a movie, and yeah, I think that's why the set was so harmonious.
Mhm.
Nice. And John, you wrote, directed, shot, edited, produced a film. I imagine, in this, working in this way, it, allows for more cohesion of vision. But how do you sort of like go around juggling those roles, particularly when you're on set? Or, I know that some other filmmakers that work in this way, they're kind of editing it as they're shooting it. Is that a similar thing for you?
Yeah, like we didn't shoot any coverage. Everything was shot exactly how like I'd planned it in the shot list, but I'd worked with Ross, who I co-DOP'd it with, on the shot, so we knew exactly what we were going to do, and we had like a list of the equipment, the lens, the lights, and like floor plans. So and because we'd such a little crew, we would be filming one scene, and then I'd say to like Carl Fitzpatrick, who was the AD, look, we're going to shoot in Moira's room next. And then he'd go off with Dario, Rebecca, Simon, who are working like everyone was like I can't just say one role because everyone was doing was working multiple roles, and they'd go and set it up and they would know exactly how like what would be needed. So it was all about just preparation and just lots of prep. So once we shot it, once I got to the edit, there wasn't really much to do for certain scenes. 'Cause some scenes are just all played out through big long wides.
Yeah.
So yeah, in terms of like, the actual vision, yeah, I was able there oh, yeah, I was able to have it all planned out, and then when it came to the editing, it was pretty straightforward. But yeah, yeah, so yeah, it was just straightforward. It was just good, but like just again, everyone that worked on it, like we're all just friends, so it was like that's what made it so yeah, just good to work. Like that's why yeah, it was great to work. Yeah, all right.
And I guess my final question, with Fright Fest very, very close, why do you hope that attendees, take a chance on this film? What are they going to get that they might not get from some of the other films that are screening outside, obviously, of a film in the Irish language?
Tom, do you want to go ahead first?
Well, the first thing I was going to say was they'll actually get to hear what the Irish language sounds like. But no, what will they get? I mean, the thing is, there's some very, how will I say, current themes, but played out in a sort of like a different period in order to show that, we haven't moved very, very far from, 1850 and what we're doing, even in the world today and stuff like that. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's kind of like without spoiling and stuff like that, like, but we'll say uh, abuse within families, or, I mean, like we're still dealing like with a lot of the things and stuff like that. And I think, like anything, if a film moves you enough to sort of like, take stock about something that's going on with you, or maybe just to sort of like evolve you in some way of thinking, or in some way of actually like approaching or perceiving the world a little differently, then hopefully like people will get that. And like the medium of horror, and John will probably allude to this, like it's a metaphor for a lot of sort of like the shadow work that we need to do for ourselves, our inner demons that we carry around, be it past karmic stuff that we've done, or you know, and I'm more particularly like, I like high vibe films, but I've changed my tune on that, and that's through John and through his direction and through how he talked to me, like when we were developing Eamon and stuff like that as a character. There's a lot more depth, and like we're seeing the world play out. It's just become so dark, like the whole planet now. And it's almost like you have to go through that sort of dark night of the soul in order to reach the light. And it's that transmutation, I think, that horror, which I wasn't aware of, but it can bring you out of your darkness and show you your light by experiencing your own darkness. So hopefully people will get that message. That's just my 2 cents, but you know John.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I was gonna say, first of all, for people to see it, like it's the first horror film in the Irish language, and it deals with a lot of topics and themes that are prevalent in Ireland, and like the horror genre, as Tom was saying, it is great to explore sensitive subjects, um, and using monsters or ghosts to like represent the real life horrors, I think is great. So it you can do in a bit more sensitive approach, like tackling such a difficult subject. But yeah, I think for audiences going to see it, if like, it can just be a jump scare horror movie on the surface level if you want, like, and watch it. But if you really do want to analyze and look into the history of it and the symbology and the what went on during that time and what the famine caused, and like through all this transgenerational trauma that it ignited, you could look at it through that way. So it's more just like yeah, a way to look into the past and see what started the like this um like like the beginning, the dark period that caused even more darkness over Ireland.
Well, I thank you both for your time and best of luck with the screening.
Thank you very
Thanks very
much.
much, Kat.